sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
I told you guys we'd be talking about hypersigils, supersigils, sigils in general, how to make them, and we're going to go a lot deeper into what the theory, philosophy, the understanding, the psychology, and how it really works. No one really comes out here telling you. They give you a couple ideas of the subconscious mind, and I'm going to go a little deeper and tell you almost exactly how it works and how it all links together. And I'm going to use it through this idea of what the phone call is, what numbers are, what frequencies are, and we have to start with this concept of any symbol that we don't understand resonates within our subconscious mind, and it links up with cymatics. If you don't know what cymatics are, it's basically you play a tone, which is a frequency, onto into a speaker, and then on top of that speaker you'll have a some salt or a sand or whatever, and maybe on a flat sheet, and it will make a symbol. It will make basically a mandala, a shape, and that is what's occurring. That's the frequency of that. And so every frequency has different shapes. Some are very non-harmonic, so there's nothing happening. It's the static, right? So think about radio stations. I'm going to give you a few ideas here, and I'm going to try to hone in on explaining to you how this exactly works. In between radio stations, there's static. Just like in between certain frequencies, you're not going to see a symbol. You have to get to specific frequencies to have it line up. So things are in harmonic resonance, and you'll get an actual image. And in between there's basically a nothingness or an empty space or disconcordance. Things that don't link up and don't fit right. It's like hitting the wrong keys on a piano. It sounds awful. It's even worse than that because we're not even using keys. It's somewhere actually in the middle of there. It's like hitting the wrong keys that are all out of tune. So if we start with our subconscious mind and thinking of the power of it's that it resides in the primordial soup of all things, all consciousness. It is that everything, that emptiness, that cave, that nothing where everything came from. And we dip in there and grab things out of there as images, because all we use is images. This is all we know. Our images then become sounds that we think mean something, that we say chair, and then chair we can break down to the letter value, or we can use those values within those letters to make the number 403, and that's not right. I forget what it is. I'm not going to break it down for you here, but those letters have a value in numbers, and those symbols mean the image. Anything that we do, any sound, we apply an image to. When we go to sleep, the image is the only thing. That's how the brain works in images. So especially when we can find an image that is basic, that is fundamental, an image beyond what we know to be something. We know the alphabet. If you speak English, you know what each letter is. So you have a conscious awareness and understanding of the language that I'm using, and you have a conscious awareness of each of those letters whenever you're writing something down. But when you put those letters together and create a sigil or a symbol or an image that you don't understand, it speaks farther to your subconscious mind. It speaks to that. And because the subconscious mind is way more powerful than the conscious mind, because you don't have to have intention, it's already in there. So this goes in, and we're going to get into breathing patterns too. And we're going to get back to this, phone call, right? It's a phone call to these different sigils. So these images, which line up with the cymatics, are lined up with phone calls, with stations on a dial. If you dial a phone number, you could look at that number as a frequency, and it might just well be. Who knows? Maybe it is. But you dial that phone number and you look at it as a frequency and somebody picks up and you hear that person's voice, then you know that they're on that frequency, on that dial with them. You're on that bandwidth. So in the same way, these sigils are speaking directly to that, but through symbolic gestures. So there are actually spirits and ancestors and things that work on these literal phone, like these phone numbers. And it's a phone number you've never used, that you don't have, that you don't know how it works. But here's how it works. So and by using these sigils and symbols, you can connect to what are archetypes, archons, whatever you want to call them. You can demons, angels, you can contact all of them. And some of them might be happy to hear your call, some might be upset. You know, you can demand them answer and you can ask them to answer. There's a lot of things that happen here. And accessing that, you can access that in your own consciousness. You can make your own sigil that becomes part of your being. And there's nothing wrong with using these other sigils, and there's nothing wrong with participating and seeing and talking with whatever those signs, symbols, entities, energies are. It's just like walking down the street. Everybody is one of those things in a physical form. And there are some things that you can't see because they're on different frequencies that you can't participate with. But what you do here by making a sigil is you bypass your conscious understanding of what's occurring. You bypass the numbers, you bypass the letters. And even numbers are somewhat undefinable, really. Like, yeah, you know what 2 or 3 or 4 of something is, but really, those numbers should only be used to define the modulation of frequencies. So distance or time, something to do with space or time, and time and space being bound together. Yeah, we can get into what imaging is and how that works. But truly, these numbers become the dial tone, the that tone there. There's a reason there's 9 of them. If we look at got our 10 fingers, 0 through 9 is 10. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is 10. It's your 10 fingers. It's your hands of God. So this connection to the phone, you hit 0, which is the operator. Hello, this is operator. What do you need? Right? So 0 is empty, which is Eve, which is the evening, which is the cave of creation, the black magic, the arts, where everything came from. So if you ever have a problem, you hit 0, and then you ask your questions. And it's even on the phone, it shows you how the whole thing works. If you can get into an O mind, an Om, you empty out your mind. Now you're at the place of asking whatever questions you want. And so we get to that place either by meditation or whatever we like. And there's breathing patterns that we can do to get us into, and I'm kind of stepping over here to this, and I'm going to circle in on what's going on here and getting to how these sigils work. I think so far it's pretty well laid out for you, but I've done other videos on breathing patterns and how to get into these different sets of breathing patterns. And I'll talk through it quick here, but you have 4 different breathing patterns, and it's your mouth and it's your nose. So you can breathe in and out of your mouth, or in your mouth and out of your nose, or in your nose and out of your nose, or in your nose and out of your mouth. So these patterns, there's 4 of them. And those 4 patterns are linked up with the alpha, beta, theta, and delta waves. So it's in the way to remember, and these are linked up with your 4 fingers. So there's a way, and it's linked up with the 4 elements. I've done other videos on this, and this isn't the place for it. But remember, there are ways to get this. So I encourage you to find my other videos on this. But these linkages are all there, and you can get into these different stages of subconscious mind to be able to get into a neurological place where you can access these symbols. And this is what has to do with your dream world, with lucid dreaming, with getting out of body, even to get into these states of the mind of nothing, of no thing. And that's where these symbols then can be put and placed and reside in and push forth out of that subconscious reality into this realm. So in other words, that is where the Jesus exists. That's where God exists. That's where yourself exists to create your reality. But people don't access that because they're always on these higher states of, and when I say higher, I mean more tense brain waves associated with fear and consciousness. When you're tense in fear, you have to be conscious of what you're doing. And therefore, you're not in the place of creation. You're not in the creative zone, in the subconscious mind, in the lower soup of putting symbols there. Now, what we can do to make these symbols is we can take ideas that we have as images in our head. So now there's something that I want, and there's an image in my head, and well, for whatever reason, it's a Lamborghini. Who knows what it might be? And again, I was telling you before, you should always start small with these things because you can override these things by your conscious mind getting in the way, and you can ride these wants and desires and things that you have by even having subconscious faults. So start with something small. And so you can use the language that you have, because the languages sit here in front of us, and the language is based upon your conscious understanding and principles of taking an image out of nowhere and putting it in front of you and being able to communicate it and tell a story with someone else. And now you can take those words that now have some value to them and put them together in a way to create a symbol. So then you're taking forth a symbol and an image out of your cave of nothingness, putting in front of you as words, so it's saying what's in your head, and then you reframe those words into a symbol that you can't understand. You understand what you wanted, but now it's back as a symbol. And that symbol now encompasses all of the energy that was inside of your head of the desires that you had in your subconscious mind. So that's heavy duty stuff, guys. That's how it works. And here's how you do it. And this goes into my other lessons about what vowels do not matter because they're always vowed to you. So we would write a sentence out, what our intention is. And this even gets into those, intent, blood over intent. And I'm saying get away from the blood. You can have intention without using your blood. You can sweat on this. You can use your pen on this. You're creating your pentagram, your body, your physical world. And so, I mean, you could use any one of your fluids you like, but sweat would be the easiest because that's the karma. Go out and do something, go exercise, and you have sweat on your head. Now use that sweat, because now there's that, they say blood, sweat, and tears. It's because there's power in that, and it's also your karma in there. So you can use that sweat to do something. And I would suggest people to start with something that simple. And so you'd write out this thing, I intend, or I wish, or I hope for, I desire, whatever it might be, whatever your feeling is about that. And then you'd write out what you want. And so for this simple one, this is my intention, and I would hope you would do something in the same. And then you'd get rid of the vowels because they're vowed to you. Now, why they say A-E-I-O-U, and sometimes why. Now, this is why I think really where that comes from is that's up to you if you want to include the Y in there. So here we go. We're getting rid of the vowels here. And then you get rid of double letters. And what we want the symbol to do is be farthest thing, when we make it, farthest thing from something we can understand. This is even getting into why people make symbols with, demonic or strange or evil looking things, or so other people won't come in and touch the symbol or to override it. We can even get into what graffiti is right here, why people graffiti. We're talking about making full on using a two-dimensional surface to pull a three-dimensional reality out of. You take your three-dimensional reality that's happening in your head, put it on a two-dimensional surface, and it blasts out a three-dimensional reality in front of you, so you get to participate in it. Okay, so here's this right here. What do we got? Two N's. We get rid of that first one. So I got an N there. We'll make it that way. We got a D. We got an F, an R. I'm not going to use Y's right now. Use a T, M, K. There's an E. We got rid of that. Got an S. Gee, I made a very long one here, didn't I? And there's an extra T. We already did that. There's an L. I'm going to use all the letters here. This is a more elaborate one than you might want to start with. You might say, I intend to make $10 this afternoon. Like that might be one. Who knows? Here we go. I already got an S, the L, I already got the F. I already have an N. I already got that D, T, H. There we go. Okay, so there's my letters. And now we'll take these letters and we'll form something. It doesn't matter. I'll start with the N. And then there's that D. So now I've used the N and the D. And now here, F. Boom, upside down. And then we could even use this to create the R. There it is, R. And then a T. There's this thing right here. We'll just extend this over there. There's the T. And the M is almost made here. Do I want to continue that? Maybe, maybe not. Let's see here. We'll make our M. Yeah, that we could do that. There's the M. You see that right there? And then the K. Here's this line here. It's coming all the way down. Well, there's the K. And the S. We can throw that up here. G. And come into here. There we go. We'll connect that. And this is so sloppy and messy, and I'm just kind of doing it to get it out here for you, because it really doesn't matter what it's going to look like. There, we'll make this H out of this. I'll make a P here. Now that might be not very magical to you. You can take a little more time to make a symbol that is, relevant to you. It could be rectilinear. A lot of people like rectilinear, meaning that it's balanced on both sides, and you can make these. It's up to you. And again, it was if I were to make a symbol, I probably wouldn't make it that sloppy, but it was just to give you an idea of what to do. So that to me now means nothing. But now getting rid of the vowels, it means those letters, and it doesn't, because again, vowels are vowed to you, and they don't matter in magic. They're always there. So these other letters now, it says that right here, this symbol says, I intend for you to make a sigil to help yourself and others. That's what that is. Now, this symbol can now be, you get rid of this up here on the top, you get rid of these letters here. And now that symbol, there's different ways of going about using this. You can write it down, and you can have an altar. You can burn it at that altar. You can sit there and focus on it for quite a while. You can, now depending on how often you've done this, there's people that think that you should hold on to the thing for a little while and look at it again, make a cut, hold it for a couple of days and look at it. Other people say to, tuck it away. Some say bury it. Some say burn it. There's different ways of going about this. And that's really up to you, because you are the practicing magician to figure out what works well for you. But if I go into this a little deeper, I'll just get into what Neville Goddard says, and I'll even get into my practice a little bit. I've always bypassed using these because I don't want to have a crux or a crutch on these sigils, because the ultimate goal of all of this is you yourself in your mind to imagine and create your reality and spit it out in front of you. And you do it in real time. Just like you do in a dream. You're not writing things down. You're not taking things along. You don't need a backpack. You don't need a paper, which means you don't need any papacy, which means you don't need the father. You don't need that figure. You don't need to burn down a tree. You don't need a pen, which means you don't need the blue blood of the pen, or the blue bloods of the papacy. Now that you see the connection, this is why the ink, INK, is KIN, is the kin, the relative of the blue bloods. They always use the ink to write something down because it means kin, and they're kinning themselves. This is where you get the word kindle, and this is the kindle, which is what you start the fire with, which comes from the tree. I'm making this little connection here for you. But what Neville Goddard says is, and what the goal here is, to manifest yourself, and once it's in your subconscious, you're done. Then you go on Sabbath. You work by creating this image in your mind, and then after you create it in your mind, then you forget about it. You leave it. You expect it to come. Now, using these sigils is the practice of taking steps, taking the baby steps, so that way you can see the thing in front of you. And you can also, with these symbols, there's all sorts of things you can do as well. You can use use essential oils to smell while you're looking at the sigil, and you could use a refreshener. You could use that smell with the sigil, and then if it's a very big intention that you might desire, then every time you smell that, you'll have you will bring that image back up into your head. And if you, and as you get better at this, you could literally bring that image into your head. And there's ways that go about practicing having a photographic type memory, or a way to bring information and into your head, into your 3D hyperspace inside of your head. And once again, this has to do with memory, which is water and light, and it's cleaning out the water in your skull, cleaning out the water with distilled water, with urine, without anything else that you, any other way, plant life, juices, cleaning out your body, and then cleaning out the waters of your mind. And there's ways of using your eyes to pull light into your brain, into your skull, so you can start to manifest images inside of your head, then do the same thing, pushing it outward. So I hope that was a really fun episode of how this all works for you guys. Any questions, put them below and I'll get back to you. Cheers.